Hello and welcome to Santos on Sports. Alongside my good friend, Mr. Chris Santos, I am Paul Santos. Welcome in. A shout out to our sponsors to start off, Attorney John B. Seed, Lakeville Athletic Club, Citywide Glass, and Scotty's Pub. So, Chris, how are we doing?
Hey, busy week, Paul. Think about what's been going on. I mean,
Yeah.
you got NFL, you have the Bruins obviously starting their season. You have Major League Baseball playoffs, what's going on there, and then obviously finishing off preseason Celtics, and they'll be starting in next week as well, next Tuesday. So there is a lot going on in sports.
Well, we want to try to hit on all of them if we can. So let's start out with the Patriots and then we'll work our way around. Obviously, last
Okay.
week they started in there with Drake Maye. People were hounding about getting Drake Maye in there. There was some discussion that maybe Coach Mayo wanted to put him in at the beginning, but there was some pushback from AVP and maybe the general manager and maybe even the owner. But eventually they caved in, and maybe they put him in the wrong game. I don't know. I thought it was going to be the wrong game. But I have to say, I thought he did pretty well under the circumstances. What was your assessment of Drake Maye? Obviously, the turnovers were killers, but moving the ball down the field, there definitely seemed to be something to point to in terms of the positives.
Well, let's do like the guys do on PTI, Paul. Let's have one word. What one word would you use for Drake Maye on Sunday's performance? What do you got?
Well, I haven't really thought about a word, but I think in the first half, probably shaky. But in the second half, the end of the second quarter and into the third and fourth quarter, I thought he got more comfortable as the game went along.
Okay, I'm going to go with the word encouraging. I was
Okay.
encouraged by what I saw, and I think the Patriots are as well. I saw better mobility. I saw better throws down the field. I saw some checkdowns. Yeah, he took some hits. He had to run and scramble a lot, different things that go on. But I would say encouraged by what I saw. And I think the Patriots fans, as well as probably the coaching staff, would probably think the same thing. Obviously you don't get the result that you wanted in winning the game, but encouraged enough to say, I think our offense can start to move in the right direction.
Well, I got to tell you, I was kind of thinking that it wasn't a good idea to put him in that particular game, that maybe they should have waited till this coming week. But now that that game is under his belt, now that he's actually played that game and he saw one of the top defenses in the league and he took some hits, but in the second half he improved. Now you go into Jacksonville, the Jacksonville game, right, in London, with this game under your belt, right? So I like that. I like that part of it. So maybe this will work out. I hope it does.
Boy, the irony of let's say they bench Trevor Lawrence to play Mac Jones.
But that
Oh
would be
boy,
great, huh?
wouldn't that be nice? It's probably not going to happen, but you never know because Trevor and Doug Peterson and the Jacksonville Jaguars have not played very well with their start, and so they decided to stay in London after last week's game out there. So they have an opportunity to stay a week and get used to the weather and get ready for that game against the Patriots. So should be an interesting one, should be a good one. And I agree, Paul. I think they have to find a way to knock the rust off, I guess, with Maye in there early and get a good start. I think that's very important going into this game, a good start.
Absolutely. And, I got to tell you, I was looking at, Drake Maye, and I was encouraged. I loved watching him throw that big bomb at the end of the quarter there. I mean, hey, that's one pass. But, boy, he looked smooth. He dropped that ball right into the arms of the wide receiver. And at that point in the game, after really playing a really uneven first half, it was 14-7. I mean, the Patriots, and they got the ball to start the second half. It's just too bad they had that turnover right away. But there was a lot to be encouraged. But I will say this, turning the ball over, I know they're trying to be a little more aggressive with him and that kind of thing. I mean, the defense was criticized, giving up the 40 points. But let's be fair to the defense. They got the ball on short field, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 times because of the turnover. So, I mean, those turnovers, those things really have to be corrected.
They do, but they do to a point of how the turnover happened. If you throw a ball across the middle and the guy jumps up and he hits his hands and then it tips up and it gets picked off, I'm not really blaming the quarterback on that one. If he overthrew the receiver and then it lands right in the safety's hands, then yeah, I'm going to look at my quarterback. It depends on how that situation happens and how it goes. I was encouraged on the play before the half. I thought it was very, very poor defense by the Houston Texans. I mean, you learn this in Pee Wee League football. You have 16 seconds left on the clock. You got the ball at the 40-yard line. You are not letting anybody beat you deep. You keep the guy in front of you. You let the clock go down, and you let them kick a field goal. I don't know what Stingley Jr. was thinking on that play. He was uptight as bump and run coverage, and he had no help over the back. So that's a great read by Maye to find the open man, and as you said, dropped it in there nicely. But for the turnovers after that, depending on how those turnovers work out, I like the aggressiveness. Sometimes receivers have to hold on to some balls. Some are coming faster than others. Sometimes it's, double coverage or tight windows. You got to execute and make plays. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't, and it causes a turnover.
I got to tell you, as a Patriot fan, hasn't had a lot to cheer about over the past few years after having the 20-year run of being spoiled. But I got to tell you, it's 14-0. I'm just kind of watching the game and all that, and all of a sudden I see that ball, boom, right into the receiver. I was like, oh, just jumped out of the chair. Boy, that one felt great. That was a beautiful play, and it was a great call at that particular time in the game. Let's go, starting off tonight, to Nelson from Fall River. Good evening.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Pats Nation. Just know you're never going to see the Super Bowl for a very long time.
Well, I saw a guy there down there in New York not looking too good the other day. Aaron Rodgers.
Don't worry. That's not the story. The real story is the pinstripes and the possibility of a Subway Series.
Ooh, yes. That would be very interesting for baseball. I'm certainly one that would not necessarily be rooting against that. Fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward more of. I'd like to see Nelson. I agree with you there, but wouldn't you think the public would want to see Judge versus Ohtani?
Right.
I think ratings-wise, if
yes,
if you're the MLB,
yes,
that's a go-to type series. But hey,
absolutely,
the Miracle Mets, I think they're gonna pull it off.
Ooh.
I really think it's gonna be a Subway Series. But I do want to say in football though, It is time that the NFL, or in general the Dallas Cowboys, no longer be considered America's team, because if you're America's team, you win. You don't lose like that on primetime television. What an absolute embarrassment that was. Absolute embarrassment. I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. But then again, it's the Cowboys. That's who they are.
Chris is taking it like a man over there.
No, listen, I agree with him. That's an embarrassing performance. You have a top quarterback that you pay all this money to, and that's what you come out with. Defense is shredded once again. I know they don't have Micah in the game and a couple of other injuries, but that's beside the point. You still got to come up and just like Nelson says, it's prime time. It's 4:25 on a Sunday, and you got to come into your house. And next thing you know, you're a 3-point underdog at your own house, and you just get shredded, and it's sad. So, I see in the second quarter some guys sitting on the bench. They're laughing with one another, and, they look like they're joking around. There's no sense of urgency. And to me, that starts with management. That starts with coaching. And they have to regroup, because it's not what you're supposed to put out there, and it's sad. But at least I know they're not the Giants or the Jets, so they're still playing okay.
To add insult to injury, that beatdown happened on his birthday of all days. On his birthday,
Jerry Jones.
Lose like that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, he was.
Listen, he's been on talk shows. He's been upset. He's been talking to radio hosts, telling them, "Look, I'll have you fired if you keep talking like that to me," kind of stuff. And he's not taking it lightly. Now, what does that mean? I have absolutely no idea. But that's Jerry Jones. So they need to have their bye week, and hopefully they can come up with some answers, because right now they're 3-3 and they don't look that good.
Hey, Nelson, do you think the Patriot fans are getting a little bit too excited about Drake Maye? What did you think about his first game, his first start?
I think they need to pump the brakes because the Patriots stink so bad. Even the skunks are laughing at them at this point.
Oh,
The skunk
Ooh.
population.
Ooh.
They're saying, what is stinking more than us? We're the skunks. We stink more. And then they look at the Patriots. They look at the TV screen, and like, oh, okay, it makes sense now.
Nelson's coming out swinging tonight.
It's just
Man.
at this point, one game. I mean, I think I said 3 games, but one game. Come on now, it's just something needs to happen with the Cowboys. When I think of the bye week, for me, the bye week should be you don't come back to play. You say bye-bye and come back next year. But the Patriots, I don't know, Pats Nation, just know I am relishing the fact that you will never see the Super Bowl for a very long time.
How about that Aaron Rodgers? How do you think he's doing?
Listen, when it comes to the Jets, the coach is gone. But I think Aaron Rodgers needs to call it a career. They had a good run.
Oh.
They need to rebrand and the team and restructure. It's time to move on. Look, when it comes to football, I don't know. But in baseball, I'm loving it. I am loving it. And I hope Brian Cashman, he better deliver the best Christmas gift for all of New York. Resign Soto to a long-term deal. He loves New York. New York loves him. I couldn't think of a better duo than him and Judge in the backfield. This is getting scary.
All right, Nelson.
When you have two young men, especially Soto, he's 25.
Yeah.
He has a lot of years left. And the last thing I'll say is I'm even more disgusted because Netflix decided to put in this docuseries of the greatest comeback fluke of the 04 Red Sox. I mean, why put them, put that on Freevee, like a free app. You're going to put this in your streaming library? What the hell is that? I think a better content to watch is when Eli Manning and the Giants ended the undefeated season.
Ooh.
Now that's a better docuseries to watch.
Ooh, oh boy, he's hit.
All right, now Nelson, I'm going to put you on the spot, Nelson.
Oh man,
who's better right now, the Jets or the Giants?
Oh man,
both of them are 2-4. Both of them are 2-4. Who's better, the Jets or the Giants?
Now I think the Jets just completed a trade.
Correct.
So we're gonna see how that goes. Given that trade, I'm gonna say the Jets are a little better than the Giants as of right now.
I
But
think
again,
they might be
Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
Yes, they just completed that trade. They needed it. But again, I mean, what looks good on paper is on paper. It needs to produce on the field.
Absolutely.
All right, Nelson. Hey, thanks a lot for the usually interesting call.
Yes, absolutely. Listen, I take pride in it. But the one thing I'll say too is this: Red Sox Nation, they always hang on to the 04 season, right? But listen, look, this is real greatness. Win the World Series 3 times, like the Yankees did: 98, 99, 2000. It's been 23 years, and it hasn't been matched since. Do that, then we could talk.
All right, thank you.
So the Yankees haven't won a World Series since 23 years now.
Well, it's been a little while. By the way, it's not just the 04. The Red Sox won 3 more times after that too.
Yep.
But boy, a lot to unpack there. He's hitting us all over the place. He's hitting us with the Yankees and the Mets, and he's taking a shot at Drake Maye, and he's taking a shot at the Red Sox and the Dallas Cowboys. And man, he really came prepared tonight.
Well, listen, Paul, the man is strictly a New York frenzy right now, and he can be gleaming because he has the Yankees and the Mets possibly in a Subway Series to win the title, so that looks good. He's got the Jets making trades. He's trying to get the Giants back in to what they are. So, and obviously he's not in Patriot Nationville. So he's gonna try to get whatever he can in at this time, and you can't blame him. It's working well for him right now.
Yeah, but this isn't a fair comparison because he's got two of each. He's got two football teams, he's got two baseball teams, he's got two basketball teams. That's not fair. Anyway,
that's how it goes.
774-218-3393. Any of the topics that we have tonight on the table. I did want to get your thoughts, though, on Drake Maye. Do you think that the Patriot fans are getting overexcited? Did you see enough there? Did you think he was doing better than you thought he was going to do? I mean, what was your assessment?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I talked to some people the next day and try to get their input. And again, they thought they were encouraged by what they saw, and it looked better than what the product was out there before in Brissett. And so that's what they wanted to see. Some more excitement in the offense, some more throwing down the field, a little bit better mobility, a little bit more taking chances. Things like that. So, no, I think they were excited, but I don't think like, oh, wow, check this out. This guy is going to lead us to the promised land. I didn't really hear any of that.
And I heard a lot of criticism of the coach, Gerard Mayo, and, all right, so you can question, should he have done this, should have done that, is he really in control of the team? Is he really the leader and all this kind of stuff? But, I'm looking at what he has to work with, and again, his roster is not very good, and the guy before him is really what left him with this, right? The guy before him, Belichick, left him with a 4-13 product, and that's the best he could do with what he had. So to have a rookie coach come in there with a rookie quarterback, basically starting from square one with how the team was left, I think you got to give the guy a chance to kind of, get some traction here. I mean, it's only 6 games, and actually, you and I went through the prediction game by game. We had him at 1-5 at this point. Maybe not exactly the way we thought it was going to go at the beginning there, but the schedule is a little bit more, I think, softer in the next, say, 5 weeks or so, with the exception of maybe one game compared to what it was. I mean, and they could have won a couple of those games. They could have won the Miami game. They could have won the Seattle game. Those are pretty good teams. So, I think the criticism of Mayo is probably a little bit too severe at this point.
Well, I mean, you're trying to put the product out on the field, and as most coaches say, let's do what's best for the team. And so at the start, it was the veteran leadership of Brissett and a conservative offense to say, hey, let's run the ball first, we'll throw second. With an offensive line that, again, came from a 4-13 team that's been struggling. You lost your center, who's your best offensive line player, probably your best offensive player out there. So, that kind of hurt them too. You got some young kids, Polk's trying to find himself. He's made some big drops. He's caught a couple of decent ones, trying to get the running game. They brought Stevenson first, and he had fumble issues. Then they went with Gibson. So, they're making things happen. They're trying to do it. Then they had the Peppers problem, and that's still out there right now. And he could probably never play and be a Patriot ever again, too. So now that cracks up the defense, and then they got to start getting going again. So it's a lot going on for them, and it hasn't happened in a while. So obviously the blame goes to who? The head coach. Now, how much you blame of it? I'm not going to give 100%, that's for sure, because sometimes players have to take into consideration their own effort and have to execute and make plays.
I think a lot of these coaches across the league are pretty good in general, and I think it's really driven by the players. Any great coach will tell you that you have to have great players to be successful. Sure. But you take a look at Belichick, right? When Belichick had a weak roster, he went 4-13, right? When Bruce Arians had Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski and, a lot of these great players, he won a Super Bowl.
Correct.
So you still have to have the players, you know what I mean? So Gerard Mayo, he doesn't have the players at this particular point, and quite honestly, that's because of the guy that left.
Yeah, I can agree to that. And you get dealt the cards, and you have to play them. And so he's trying to make the best of what he has, and he's working hard on all phases of the game and trying to make what's best for his team. And so that's why he's made some changes in some different spots to say, hey, we got to get out there with a product that wins, and we got to keep our fans happy. So I'm sure he's trying his best. the media is going to tear you up, Paul. That's just how it is around here when you've been winning for a while. And it doesn't matter if it's the Red Sox, the Bruins, the Celtics, or the Patriots. That's Boston. It's high market. It's quality product sports out there. So they want them to succeed.
How important is this next game, do you think? I mean, this game against Jacksonville, right? People are looking at that game and thinking, okay, we're 1-5, they're 1-5. One of the teams is going to come out with a win over here to win their second game, right? So one of the teams is going to be looked at as the bottom of the barrel in the league, whoever loses that game. So I do think that there is some importance to this game because you got Jacksonville, then you get the Jets again. The Jets really manhandled the Patriots so easily the first time, but I think you pointed out, you thought the Jets might come up short at least one of these times. I know that was at the beginning of the season, but still.
Yep.
Then you got Tennessee, Chicago. I mean, these teams aren't bad teams, but, they're teams that the Patriots should be able to compete with. So this one against Jacksonville, I don't know, as a Patriot fan, somebody that wants to see the team at least try to get somewhere in the vicinity of 500, right? They need this one. I think they really need this one badly.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, this helps the nation sit back and say, you know what? We have some promise, and we can take, maybe some under 500 teams and take it to them and compete and look good. Paul, you can lose games and play really well. It's just that the other team played better because they have more depth or they have better quality players. And there are times that you can lose games and really look bad. And I just think Patriots want to see some better effort and better excitement in the offense and what they have out in the field to produce and try to electrify the crowd and do some good things. So, I think it's a winnable game.
Yeah, I'm looking back at a couple of those games. I mean, you can point to a play here and a play there. I mean, teams can do that all day long. The Seattle game, they were so close to winning that one. Obviously the Miami game, they were so close to winning that one. But hey, that's water under the bridge. But I'm looking at your predictions and my predictions at the beginning of the season. We don't have them winning another game until Tennessee. You and I both had the Patriots going 1-7 before they finally won another game. That's just at the beginning of the year when we went next game. So we have them winning more games in the second half of the season than at the beginning to come out with our prediction of 6-11. So there is a ways to go, and if Maye can get in there and get comfortable, that would certainly help the cause. But then, after that last game the other day and after these couple of games, I was thinking about your bet. Your $500 bet that you have
not looking good.
They have to win 5, right?
5.
So a couple more losses, they're going to have to go 500 the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. We'll see. I still have faith. I still think they can, you got to, like you said, winning breeds more winning. If you can win a couple games, you know what I mean, get some confidence going, that's obviously big. So maybe they can get a couple of wins. I mean, if they win this one here, hey, you know what I mean? I think this is a huge game right here, especially Drake Maye now. His second game, played against a tough defense, and the game before you're playing against a team that is struggling. This really needs to be a good game.
No, I agree with you there. And, I'm going to finish up with this comment about the New England Patriots. Winning breeds winning. We understand that. And then all of a sudden, you take a big nosedive, and then people sit back and say, well, we're just rebuilding. Don't worry, we'll be fine. And yeah, that can happen. And sometimes it doesn't happen. And it takes a while to rebuild. So, not everybody can turn it around that quick. I know, and I've seen teams do it within a year or two, but I've also seen teams take 5 to 10 years before they do it. So let's not jump the gun. I'm going to stop there with that. Just kind of get an idea and work on week by week and then see what happens at the end of the year. So let's move on to the Boston Bruins now.
All right.
Your team, Paul, that off to a 2-2 start. Is it a shaky start? You tell me.
I think it is a shaky start. I'm worried.
And why?
I'm worried about the defense. I'm worried about the defense. I'm worried about team defense, not so much the defensive core, but team defense. When I'm looking at Coach Montgomery, I mean, I always thought he was good. I mean, he had such a great season, 2 years ago, another great season last year during the regular season. But, the playoffs are different. You got to be able to grind it out in the playoffs. You got to be able to play good team defense. You got to be able to not cough up the puck in your own zone. You got to be able to not give up odd man rushes and things like that. And I remember when the Bruins won the Stanley Cup the last time, Claude Julien, right? He was more of a defensive guy. In fact, he was such a defensive guy, the big goal scorers really didn't like him because you weren't out there scoring 50 goals because his system really didn't let you do that. But then in the end, when it came time to really deliver when you needed to in the playoffs, that system seemed to work better. So I think the defensive idea for a team, particularly in any sport, but in hockey, where you really have to grind out those defensive games, I don't like it at all. And Swayman is not going to bail you out of some of these games. I mean, there are, plays in front of him, that little tip-ins behind you that nobody could stop. So the defense has me worried.
Okay, now I'm going to go opposite here, Paul, and here's why. You're 2-2, and remember, you lost to the Stanley Cup champions twice. Mm-hmm. You lost to Florida both times. You beat the Canadiens and you beat the Kings. So I'm going to subside on this one because Florida is that good, and they continue to be good. So I think the Bruins are going to be fine. Also, remember, Swayman has just got his feet back under him after that lengthy contract dispute, and they're finally going to start getting him to play a lot more games. So I think what's really got me right now is the grit. I want to see more grit. I want to see Bruins players get physical with other team superstars first before the other team gets physical with the Bruins superstars. So when they're going after Pasternak and they're going after Lindholm, that's what good teams do. The Bruins have to find some grit early and go after guys like Tkachuk and go after Reinhart and let them come at you. Bruins have had 2 games with Florida, and both times the physicality went Florida's way, and the Bruins are in the box more than they should have been. So I want to see better grit from this Bruins team, but they're not that bad, Paul. It's not about being shaky. I think the big Z on defense, he's going to be okay. Xanadov can hit. He's tough, and he's going to lay out some people, and I saw him against Florida do it a couple of times. So if they get him, Carlo getting going and a couple more, I don't think they're going to be that bad. So I don't think it's a shaky start.
All right, I guess it's just, being a fan, I got a little concerned in some of these games. And I know that Florida's the best team in the league.
Yes.
Which I remember, a couple of years back when the Bruins had that great regular season where they had the best record of all time and they got Florida in the first round. You remember, we talked about, I was like, that Florida team is a great team. But I don't know how they ended up with them in the first round. I don't know what kind of playoff system this is. So when the Bruins
Well, I mean, listen, I don't give you credit that much on this show, but I'm going to give you credit for that one.
Yeah.
Because you did say Florida is a very good hockey team.
Yeah, they had won the President's Trophy the year before, and now look at them, a couple of cups. And so, that team is definitely no joke. It's just, the playoff system, unfortunately, the Bruins find themselves in the division that has the best team in the league. They're out west, you got some weak teams, but hey, that's not where they are. They're in the East. So you got to play the teams that are in front of you. So we'll see what happens. But, in that very first game, especially the first game against Florida, right?
Yep.
I think the Bruins were distracted with this idea that they had to be tough, like you're saying, right? And I think you're absolutely right. They do have to be tough. They do have to be gritty. They do have to get in the weeds there and battle guys like Tkachuk and go after the other team's best players and aggravate them and get right in there with them. Exactly, 100%. I agree. But I think the first game that they played, they had that mindset. They almost went overboard. They were spending the whole time fighting, and while they were spending the whole time fighting, they weren't really playing the game the way it should be played. At least that's how I saw it. What do you think about that?
Yes, and I thought they did the same thing in Game 4 when they played Florida again the second time in Boston. I thought they got caught up with some cheap shots, and they got caught up with the entanglement of the guys getting under their skin. And we heard Barry Peterson during the intermission saying the same thing. The Bruins can be physical, but you got to do it in a positive way. Bruins were doing it in a negative way and getting cheap and taking that extra penalty where it can be 1-1 instead it's 2-1, and it puts Florida on the power play. So the Bruins need to have that grit and that physicality, but they got to do it mentally in a better situation. So I know Florida gets under their skin. They have to find a way to control that team.
That's a good team. That's a tough team. And, once you won the Stanley Cup and you have that under your belt, I think it makes them even tougher. because they got it over with. Nobody can ever say, hey, that's the guy who never won the cup, and all that kind of stuff. So that's out of the way. And now they've been there before. They know what it takes. And they were a great team before. And now, they're even tougher than they were before, in my view.
Yeah, well, listen, you're going to have to play them, a few more times. And it was very surprising that they played them twice already in 4 games. So you're like sitting there going, holy cow, they got Florida already, both times. So, when you have to take care of the teams you're supposed to take care of, that's what you do. And I thought they did a good job with Montreal and LA. And again, Swayman getting his feet back under him. And, he signed that contract now. He should be smiling from ear to ear. I'm hoping he's ready to go. Corpusalo, it's Corpusalo. He's the backup. That's what he does. So you throw him in there now and then. Hopefully he'll have a hot game or two and then see how it goes. So down the stretch, I think the Bruins still will be okay. It's too early to tell. I'm trying to look. They're at Colorado tonight. So they're going to be on the road for a little bit. Then they go to Utah, who was the former Arizona team. And then they play Nashville. Okay. And then they finally come home and they take on a very good West team in the Dallas Stars. So let's see how they look, Paul, and we'll talk about this group in a week or two, and let's see how we think then. And I'll say, Paul, do you think they're shaky now?
All right. Sounds good. 774-218-3393 if you'd like to join our discussion here on Santos on Sports here on this Wednesday night. As Chris pointed out, Bruins playing against the Colorado Avalanche a little bit later on. We've got the Patriot team playing tomorrow night out there, and not tomorrow night, on Sunday against
Sunday morning.
Sunday morning, 9:30 in the morning. Against Jacksonville in London. So that's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. So make sure you're up and ready to go first.
Paul, you're going to be up at 8:30 making me strawberries and cream, and out in London, and have a cup of coffee, have some pancakes, and listen, the man cave ain't open until at least 12:30.
So that's right. I might have to save the man cave for a different day.
Yeah, that was not happening on a Sunday morning.
Well, the Boston Celtics have been playing some preseason games, and
yes,
I have to say I've been watching some of the games here and there. But before we get to all the big stars on the team, how about Mr. Peyton Pritchard, right? Hasn't he been a blast to watch? He is just hitting everything. Talk about a sixth man. Some people are predicting that he's going to be in the running for the sixth man of the year this year. Peyton Pritchard, an exciting player, always gives you everything he's got. He had a couple of years there where he didn't play much, but he kind of, took it in stride, hung in there, and he's been getting his chance. He hit that big shot from half court a couple of times. So he's a hustler, and I like watching him play. I really enjoy watching Pritchard. I'm a Pritchard fan.
Yes, and I'm liking the quality and depth of the Boston Celtics. They have a lot of depth, Paul, that I'm looking at this year, and they have the whole roster there. They're playing everybody, and then they're going to make that cut and say, okay, this group, you're going up to Maine. And this group, you're staying here in Boston. So it's nice to take a look at all these guys from Hauser to Cornette, who we already know. But then you see these other guys, the Hoppers, the Walkers, and obviously Peyton Pritchard getting a lot more time running that kind of unit, things like that, just to see the quality and the depth of the Boston Celtics. I'm actually really, really impressed in what I've seen in this preseason. And I'm not really worrying about the starters. We know what they have, but it's the guys that can hang around on this bench. And if there's injuries or if there's something that, somebody needs a rest, you can have a second unit, third unit in there that can come in, some of them guys, and still do a good job and not lose much from, having that other guy who's going to be sitting out. So it's some quality basketball that I've been watching in this preseason.
Be interesting to see how the season goes, because there are a lot of teams out there that are looking at the Celtics and saying, okay, we added some guys here, we got some injuries back, we really want to take a run at the Celtics. But I look at this roster, Tatum and Brown, Porzingis, if he stays healthy, or even if he's healthy part of the time, he's still going to help you. Holiday, Derek White, we talked about Peyton Pritchard. What other team can roll out a group like that? That's just a deep deep team, and now they've won, as I pointed out before. Once you've won, that monkey is kind of off your back, and now I think the Celtics are going to be really, really tough to take down by these other teams based on what I see in these other rosters.
Yeah, well, I mean, our question is, can the Celtics repeat? Yeah. And I actually think they can. I really do. I think they have a lot to play for. I think there's been some off-season situations that have affected some of these players. And I think that, like I said, the quality and the depth to back them up. Obviously, don't expect them to win every game, but let's not get carried away. Our goal is to stay in first place in the East and have everybody come to you come playoff time. But I think this is a team that can repeat as long as, knock on wood, everybody stays healthy.
Well, Brown not being picked for, the Olympic team, right?
Yep.
That can be something that can motivate him. And then Tatum, of course, was on the team, but they hardly used him much.
Right.
So both of those guys can kind of say, all right, I'm going to use that as a motivating factor. And sometimes you give a professional athlete just that one little thing they can keep in his head. That's dangerous.
Oh, no, absolutely. And the other guy who made the Olympics.
Oh, Derek White?
No, Holiday.
Holiday, yeah.
Right. So now Holiday has to take to effect now. Hey, listen, I got picked. I'm supposed to be one of these elite players as well. I want to be up there with the big guys and show what I can do too. So that's another guy that has a lot of promise and a lot to say, hey, wait a minute. Don't forget about me, because I've been all-stars on other teams before. And look, they picked me in the Olympics. I can do just as good too. So, yeah, that's nice to see. And hopefully Porzingis becomes that stud or that star that we know he can. And, yeah, I don't think anybody can match them when you're talking about the top five.
And, Tatum, I didn't think he had the greatest playoff. We don't want to rehash all that. But,
yep.
Brown and Holiday and DW and all those other guys, I mean, what a tandem. I mean, when you add those guys all together, you don't have the best player on the league on this team, but you have a group of players that you add them together, you have the best team in the league.
And they're young, Paul. They're young. They're hungry. Yeah. You know what I mean? They're hungry, and that's what they want. They want championships. They saw what happened last year, and they're like, man, I want to do this again. We want to have some veteran leadership like a Horford and a Porzingis. But then the young guns, all them four other guys, you can sit back and say, whoa, we're just going to roll right through some of these teams and let's go get them. So I really hope that hunger and that fire, deep inside says, hey, we did it once. We can do it a few times. That's how good we are. So hopefully it all gels again, and I can't see why not.
After the Celtics, right, what other teams do you think have a chance to challenge them? Like, who do you think would be like the second, third, fourth best teams in the league so far based on you looking forward?
Well, last year it didn't show because to me, you need a healthy Embiid. You need for Philly, you need a healthy Antetokounmpo for Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. And then the Knicks just got Karl Anthony Towns, who some have predicted is soft, and they got rid of Randall, but hopefully he helps that team and he stays healthy because he was banged up last year also with the Timberwolves. So if you get those three guys, which is, your star on your team, but if they're not there, how do you expect to win? You have to have your star ready to play. And so a full Embiid is going to help, a full Giannis, and obviously a full Towns. So they have to find a way to keep those guys healthy and then build around them, and they can be good as well. So right now, watch out for the Knicks. The Knicks could be a little bit of a surprise with Brunson, and if Towns plays the way he's supposed to.
Now, what about Denver?
Well, now you're talking about the West, which you wouldn't see, into the finals anyway. So, they're good, obviously. I think the Lakers are old, so I don't think they're really going to do too much. I like to see get better as the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Right.
That's a young team that's not that bad. Got some good players on there, and remember what happened last year? They came up and thought people said they got a good chance, and Dallas took it to them. But I think they'll be better with a little bit more experience this year if they get back to that position.
The other thing, too, I think most of these teams you're talking about, maybe they improve the second person or the third person. But when you look at the Celtics, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're still deeper than everybody else, right? Don't you think? Yeah. All right, let's talk a little baseball. Let's talk a little baseball. Drop that in here on Santos on Sports. By the way, if you want to talk about anything, any of the above that we've talked about tonight, whether it's football, hockey, basketball, baseball, give us a call at 774-218-3393. We'd be happy to hear from you tonight. I think Nelson from Fall River, the big New York guy, was talking about, a Subway series. But I got to tell you, when I put on the games, there's two things I'm watching. I'm watching for Judge, and how about Giancarlo Stanton just whacking the ball all over the place, right? And then you put on the Dodgers and you see Ohtani, the best player in a generation, maybe in the conversation of being the best player of all time, possibly, based on his ability to pitch and hit and steal bases and, the whole thing. But I got to tell you, I just love watching Ohtani play. I love watching Judge and Stanton and some of these guys. And New York versus Los Angeles. Boy, how excited would MLB be, and how excited would the networks be if you had the two biggest cities in the country with all those stars and all that star power and all that money going against each other in a World Series?
Oh, it would be really exciting. The biggest thing to me for the LA Dodgers is this pitching staff. They are banged up. They got 3 or 4 starters who are out and hurt, and that's really affecting them. Paul, in game 2, they started has-been for the Boston Red Sox. Brazier started the game in game 2. Pitched like an inning or two or whatever it was. And I'm like, oh, my God, they have no starting pitcher right now. So they got like Yamamoto. They got finally Buehler's going to go. Kershaw's not on the roster. Glasnow's not on the roster. Stone's not on the roster. Their pitching staff is banged up. So if they're going to win, they're going to have to out-hit the Mets and try to get to that pitching staff. So, Freeman and Betts, obviously Ohtani, and the rest of those hitters, they're going to have to come through, because right now it's tough for the Dodgers to throw anybody out there.
It's funny when you come across ex-Red Sox players. You mentioned Brazier. I mean, he was, not exactly the ace of the staff there. So we saw him in the game. I'm like, what? Is that Brazier?
Yes.
So then, I'm kind of watching the game, and then I saw J.D. Martinez come up, So even my wife was like, hey, wait a minute. Wasn't he with the Red Sox? I'm like, yeah, Mookie Betts, it was with the Red Sox. Brazier was with the Red Sox. All these guys with the Red Sox. They went off to greener pastures, and here they are in the playoffs. And by the way, I'm looking at some of these teams. Another thing that was kind of irritating me as a Red Sox fan, right? There are teams that are still playing that won 86 games during the regular season, right? 86 games. I believe it was the Mets won 86 games, right? The Red Sox won 81, right? So 81 versus 86 over 162 games. So how much better can an 86 team be than an 81 win team, right? Over 162 games. So, if you just spent a little money and added a little bit more to that team, you could have been an 86 win team too. You know what I mean? Like, you really just have to get into the playoffs now. It's almost like, hockey. You get in the playoffs. It doesn't matter what you did during the regular season, I don't think, and even baseball anymore. Because if you don't have the injuries and you get hot at the right time, the bats start coming around and, this kind of thing, you can go on a run. Look what happened with the Texas Rangers last year. So,
and here's the other thing that I would say, Paul. I don't know if I'd guarantee it, but I would be close. I would be close to guaranteeing this. Think of the Red Sox not in the American League East. Think of them in the Central. Think of them in the West. Do they win more than 81 games? Yes,
Absolutely.
They do. I'm not going to guarantee it, but I'm this close to saying they would win more than 81. When you play in the ALE East, and you got the Orioles who are playing good now, you got the Yankees who always play good, Toronto who can always give fits, Tampa Bay who can give them fits. That is the toughest division in baseball by far, and probably the toughest in any sport out there. That is so difficult to do what they do. So I'm going to take into consideration if they were in the Central or if they were in the West, would they win more than 81 games and be in the playoffs? I say yes, they would.
I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100% because you're talking about 5 games over 162. That's like, a play here and a play there, and you're in a different division and you're playing weaker teams. Yeah, absolutely, they would have won a lot more. They might have won more than 5 more games, depending on where they were, because some of these divisions are putrid. They're terrible.
Right. And so to me, that's why the Boston Red Sox need to spend the cash, because it's the league you're in. You keep going up against the Yankees. You keep going up against those teams. You have to spend the money to get those players to compete in the American League East. You just have to. It's too dominant of a division.
Absolutely, 100%. And, we were talking about the Orioles last week. What a disappointing exit from the playoffs. But, when you don't win the division, and again, they're in that same toughest division in baseball, like the Red Sox, they ended up coming in second. They had to play in the wild card. So when you get to play in the wild card, or you have to play in the wild card, you're stuck with that damn 2 out of 3. And that 2 out of 3, that 2 out of 3 is brutal. You go into a 2 out of 3. I mean, that's not really a good sample size of who's better. It's just like who plays better on that day, and you can take the whole 162 games and throw them out because you didn't win this one game here.
Yeah, unfortunately, it just happens that way, and you want to win as much as you can to win the East, which is obviously difficult to do. But I like the way the Orioles organization has gone about trying to spend the money, trying to do some, homegrown product as well, mixing the two together. When they feel that, hey, we're missing this piece, at least they went out and tried to get it. And they did that with Burns. They did that with the pitcher from Philly. So they made some moves. I think the biggest part was their bullpen was a little off. They thought Kimbrough could have been the guy. He wasn't the guy. They went out and got Dominguez, a couple other guys. Just didn't seem all year long. They struggled from the 7th, 8th, and 9th. That's something they'll have to look at next year. Maybe find a guy that say, hey, this is our closer. Look out. We got a guy we want.
I got to tell you, I'm watching these games. They installed a pitch clock, as you know, and they actually made the time even shorter this year than before. And I'm watching these games, and these games are zipping along. I think they've really improved on this product. These playoff games, they're moving along very quickly. Obviously you got to have decisions about changing pitchers and sometimes a replay challenge, or the umpires want to check something. But by and large, these games are zipping along, and I think it's just been great. I think the product has really, really increased. You think of some of those games of the Red Sox Yankees, 5.5 hours and all this. I mean, our attention span would not tolerate that now in 2024. So I love the fact that, I put the game on and it's the 5th inning, it's the 6th inning, 7th inning, maybe 2.5 hours, boom, right in the clutch of the game. Really a great product, I think.
I haven't looked it up yet, Paul, in the playoffs, what the average game is determined by hours and minutes. I'm kind of curious on that because as well as I do, everything slows down in playoffs because obviously you want to play that chess game, that thinking game, and you want to make all these moves and do all these things, and you want to let the pitches go deep in the count, and you want to do all that stuff. And sometimes, obviously, now with that clock, you can't do that. So it has to speed up. But I haven't had a chance to look. I'm going to wait till the series ends, and then maybe I can kind of scout that to say, hey, what did it look like during the year, and then what did it look like in playoffs, and get a better picture. But I think it has been moving along just fine.
And actually, I don't mind it slowing down a little bit in the playoffs because, you get to the late inning game and, you have all that strategy. And that's what really makes the game exciting when you have to make those big decisions and who's coming up and how's he going to work the count and all the stuff that you said, changing the pitchers, the closer coming in, all that stuff, right? So it does slow down a little bit, but it's fine in the playoffs and in the World Series and in the League Championship Series. But I still think it's faster than it was before. And by the way, during the regular season, I think it went from something like 3:20 down to like 2:30 maybe, or something like that, 2.5 hours. So, you got to do that because, our attention spans are shorter based on social media, based on the phone, based on, streaming movies or whatever we do now. Everything's faster, everything moves along. You got to do it. And you look at some of these other sports. I mean, basketball, it's timed. I understand that. And hockey's timed. All the other sports are timed. Football goes on a long time, but that's a whole other animal. But like hockey and basketball and soccer, I mean, the games move along quickly, and I think it's to their benefit that they do.
Well, I mean, the only difference would be if, second inning, third inning, I get out of my chair and I go down and use the bathroom or go get a beer or whatever it is, and I come back and I look, it's the fourth inning. And so you're like, whoa, what did I miss? So, with these lines, when you're at the concession stand, that takes a little bit. So you're like, whoa, this game's moving on and I'm missing. So, it has that in there effect as well. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I like it. I think the fans like it. I think the people at home like it. And you don't have to spend the whole day, at a ballpark. So that's pretty good.
Well, before we wind things down, I know Nelson had brought it up at the top of the show, but I wanted to ask you about it. I'm watching the Patriots on Sunday. The game's over. I like to watch the fifth quarter. I like to watch the coach come out and answer the questions, even though he doesn't tell you anything. My wife says, oh, they say the same thing every week. I got to look at the film. I got to be better and all that stuff. That's true, but I still like to watch it. But then after that was all done, I'm like, well, what's on now? Who's on? Well, I'll put the Cowboys on,
Yep.
Maybe I'll watch the Cowboys for a little while, listen to Tom Brady. I think Tom Brady is getting better in his color analyst job. Obviously, he's been a few weeks now. But I'm watching the Dallas Cowboys, and as the game is going on, I'm thinking, oh, my God, Chris, I'm sure Chris was watching this. I'm like, oh, this is awful. What is going on? That was really a bad performance by a team that you're expecting so much from, right?
I'm more discouraged with my defense than I am with my offense. I think my defense can't stop anybody. They're getting shredded on the run. They're getting shredded in the pass. And by the time Dak really tries to get going, they're always down 14-0. Mm-hmm. They can't do anything to control themselves, to get sacks, to stop runs, to stop first downs. And the next thing you know, you're playing catch up all the time. And then when you play catch up, you're forced to do things that you don't want to do. And then you make errors and everyone says, well, look what happened there with that. Yeah, but, I'd like to see it more if it was 0-0 and then try to get on top early. But, that's the way games go. And sometimes you have to play from behind. Sometimes you play out in front. For him and the Cowboys, unfortunately, the last few games, they have been playing from behind. Injuries have hurt, but they're getting shredded all over the place. So it's not a good product for them right now. Still at 500. They got a bye week. Maybe they can get healthy, regroup a little bit, and come back and get ready for that middle half of the season and see how it goes.
Yeah, at the beginning of the year, right, just looking at the last few seasons and historically, I mean, the Cowboys are almost always in the playoffs, right? You would like to point that out.
Pretty much.
That's absolutely true. They're pretty much in there. And you look at last year's team, the last couple of years, a play or two away from getting to the Super Bowl, right? The 49ers got there and, so on and so forth. So, they're right there, and yet they just can't seem to get over the hump.
No. Well, that's the big thing that people say, well, you can't win the big one. Well, unfortunately, 31 teams can't win the big one. And you make the playoffs and you put yourself in a chance to do it. You got to execute when you have that big situation. You got to find it. Now, I've always said from day one, I don't think Dak is the it player. I've always said that. And I'll say that until he's not a Cowboy anymore. So I'm hoping he can prove me wrong and show that, oh, yeah, I'm that it player, and I'm going to win games for this team, and I'm going to win some big ones. They got the bye week, and then guess what? San Francisco 49ers. So it doesn't get any easier for them on their schedule. They got to come up and stop playing some good football and get back to winning. Let's see what happens.
I definitely agree with you on Dak Prescott. We've had that discussion before.
Yes.
Let's go to Ben in Dartmouth. Good evening.
Ooh.
Good evening, guys. Paul, Chris, how are you guys doing today?
Good.
All right, Ben, how are you?
I'm doing well. So, first things first, I just wanted to come on here and talk a little bit about Drake. I felt like Drake played a heck of a good game. Although he was a rookie, only threw 2 picks in his first career start. I mean, that first long bomb to Kayshon Boutte in the end zone just really proved to me, like, this guy is it. And, you pair him up with good receivers, he'll be decently well. As of right now, yesterday we saw the trade deadline. You saw Devontae Adams getting traded. Amari Cooper getting traded to the Bills. Devontae Adams going to the Jets. I felt like we could have gotten Amari Cooper maybe later in October, or we could also snag for T. Higgins. He's been out for a couple weeks too. So
Imagine, Paul, those two guys going to the AFC East.
I know,
Yeah.
huh?
Isn't that unbelievable? Just to kind of, not to say we're going to stick it to the Patriots, but enough to say that, we got a chance to win this division. Nobody's running away with it, so let's go out and do it. I'm surprised Miami hasn't maybe done something a little bit more there too, with Tua being out, but they tried it with the guy from Baltimore. It doesn't seem to be working too well for them right now. I'm curious to see how they start to make their move and what happens with Tua, and see if Miami takes a run at this as well.
Hey, Chris, I'm just wondering, after seeing Drake May, right, do you think they should have started him right at the beginning of the season?
No, I don't.
You just got to learn a little bit of the playbook, especially as a rookie who's 21 years old and just only got 2 years of college experience.
Right.
I feel like we did a good job not rushing him right away. Mac Jones, we rushed him right away because he only played one full season of college football.
Mm-hmm.
Drake only played two. And you could tell by this season that there's a big change in this organization. Like they run West Coast offense and whatnot. But Alex Van Pelt, who is the offensive coordinator for the Browns a couple of years ago, is our offensive coordinator now, and he mainly is a good offensive coordinator when it comes to West Coast offense. So yeah.
All right. So Chris said encouraged. That was the word that Chris used at the beginning of the show to describe the performance of Drake May. So Ben, you are encouraged, and maybe even more than just encouraged.
I'm really encouraging this dude. No matter what, I feel like he's got a lot to prove in himself. I know he's not going to be probably rookie of the year. Jaden Daniels holds that distinction so far, but yeah, he looks legit, man. I'm hoping like Sunday he can actually ball off. Jacksonville's same team as us, but like I feel like we are a better strength team. If they lose, I'm just gonna come on here next week and rant about it. So
All right, Ben, thanks very much for the call.
All right, Paul, see you Friday.
All right. Let's go to
Paul,
Ryan
let me ask you this question, Paul.
Okay, hang on. Yep, go ahead, Chris.
So you have all the teams in the NFL. You have a proven Jaden Daniels. You have maybe a proven Caleb Williams, maybe. Besides that, all the other quarterbacks who have been drafted last year, or maybe even the year before, who has stepped up in that time? Has Bo Nix been that great? Has Spencer Rattler, who came in for the Saints, been that great? Has Will Levis done a great job? Tell me somebody, even Young for Carolina, who's now benched for Andy Dalton. Did he do a good job? So it's a prime position that's why I'm not sure I start guys right away unless I'm positive that this is the guy and he's going to really be something. And so Bo Nix is going through it. Bryce Young, Will Levis, all them guys, Spencer Rattler, all those guys are going through it right now. And it's very difficult. Simple as that.
All right, this is Ryan in Rochester. Good evening.
Hey guys, sorry for the buzzer beater call. How's it going?
That's all right. That's fine.
So, in terms of I agree with what Chris was just saying before. Like, it's an inexact science with these young quarterbacks. So you got to have the sort of the right situation to put them in. But as for Drake May, I'm definitely encouraged by what I saw. I'm not gonna jumping up and down for joy because there was. One of the interceptions wasn't his fault, but he had a horrible interception in the first quarter, and then had a fumble, which wasn't entirely his fault because the offensive line is still dog water. But the fact that he kept his composure out there, didn't entirely fall into bad habits. After the interception, got a great throw to Kayshon Moody before the halftime for that first score. So I think there's, you do have some stuff to build on. So obviously some stuff to clean up and obviously, additions to make to the roster down the road. But absolutely, I'm encouraged.
So
I agree with you, Ryan. And
agrees with
I
you.
said that was the one word that I thought was something that Patriots fans should be happy with, encouraged, and sit back and say, hey, we see what this guy can do when we give him some people and help around him. And so hopefully, the Patriot Nation sits there and says, hey, we're going to be fine. We're going to be okay. Now we're going to do this next, and then we're going to do that next. And, it's not just Drake May. It's so much more. Especially now losing Peppers on the defense. Andrews is out. You just a lot more going on. Yeah, the Stevenson fumbles, a lot of things. So just as long as they don't key on one guy and they just kind of support him, keep him there and see how it goes, I think they'll be okay.
What are you looking for in the Jacksonville game, Ryan?
Just kind of like a continuation of what we saw last week. Hopefully cutting back on the turnovers a little bit. One of the things I want to see more is, because he's been very quiet all season, I want to see how this Drake May to potentially Jalen Polk connection comes up. Because, it was Drake May in the first round, then it was, Jalen Polk in the second round, who supposedly had some of the better hands in the class, but, he's not getting open, and two, when he's getting the ball in his hands, he's dropping it a bunch of the time. So hopefully he gets going. Maybe you throw some Javon Baker in there, because he hasn't seen the field at all this season. So just kind of little things like that. And I think Gerard Mayo made some implications that there would be some changes to the starting lineup. So I don't know if it's going to be the offensive line. I don't know if it's going to be changing of receivers per se. Maybe Baker gets in there. See if there's anything noticeable.
All right, Ryan, we appreciate the call. No problem on the buzzer beater. And by the way, your call, which was a buzzer beater, unlike Tatum, it was a successful buzzer beater. So we appreciate that.
Hey, Ryan, where are you working right now?
Where am I working right now? Still at Staples. I'm home right now, though.
Listen, is that your only job? Because, you could be looking for another one. You might have to take my place. If I got to listen to this guy talk about these buzzer beaters all year long, man.
Yeah, but this year he could be hitting them all, and then every time he hits one, I'm going to be getting them. I'm going to have to shut my phone off if he starts hitting them.
Oh, man, you better pray that he.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy.
We all know that's coming.
All right, well, let's hope the Patriots can get a win with Drake May and beat Jacksonville and grow and hopefully build their team as they continue to try to rebuild. Thank you, Ryan.
Here's hoping.
Have a great night.
Thanks, Ryan. Good luck this week.
Yeah, when he referred to his call as a buzzer beater, I'm like, this is just low hanging fruit.
Oh, yeah, you couldn't wait to jump on that.
I was holding that throughout his entire call.
Which you said 20 minutes ago, I'm not even going to go down that road. That's for another time. He's got to wait for the last minute and just throw it in.
Yeah, but he said his call was a buzzer beater. I wasn't expecting that. You know what I'm saying? Anyway,
Yeah,
I'd like to thank Scotty's Pub, Citywide Glass, Lakeville Athletic Club, and attorney John Seed for assisting us and sponsoring us here on Santos on Sports. So let's see what happens this week. Hopefully, Patriots can bounce back. Hopefully, your Dallas Cowboys can kind of catch their breath. And we'll see what happens with the playoffs. The baseball playoffs have been a lot of fun. Bruins and Celtics. Bruins are playing tonight against Colorado. Celtics will be starting their season very soon. So a lot of fun sports coming up in the very near future. And we'll be looking forward to watching all of the above. So for
I
Chris
can't
Santos,
wait, Paul, because, hey, listen, it's going to be a fun week. Going to be another good weekend of some football. Teams are on byes. Like you said, catch your breath, get back into it. Dartmouth this week, you got to do a game Friday, Paul?
Yes, I am. Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to be up in the north end of New Bedford with the Voc Tech Bears.
All right, very good. And by the way, I'm going to be away next week, so we'll be back in 2, and we'll get caught up on everything that's going on here in sports. From our good friend, Mr. Chris Santos, I'm Paul Santos. Have a great night. We'll talk to you again real soon.